Welcome everyone. So it's been a few days, actually quite a few days since the last video. Just to kind of catch you up, I started to do something, and then my father-in-law came over. We got the Jeep transmission put back in. You guys seen that here a couple days. We're just waiting on the transmission to get back for that. So that day I really didn't do anything because I knew he was kind of coming over and I had some other stuff to take care of. But I got the fuel filler position more or less done. Like I said, that's basically all I got done that day. Sunday, went to church, didn't do a whole lot on Sunday either, just kind of taking it easy. So it was already kind of like, you know, I was hoping to have this more or less, you know, hoping to have it better done, but that wasn't the case. So last night I came down here for a fuel, and I got this tag recessed in there, and I started to kind of figure out, you know, what I want to do with lights and in the back end and stuff like that. And I was just kind of flustered because I was just like, you know, I want to keep it simple, but I want to make it look good. Like I said, that's all I really got done last night. So I did video some of it, but it's just like, you know, why even bother showing that? But we're back today. We're gonna try to start working on getting some trim around here, getting a little bit of fender kind of action going on. Got a couple questions about going into depth how I bolt the bed down, to toolboxes, about how, you know, building toolboxes and that kind of thing. So we probably will not get into the toolboxes in this video, but I'll go ahead and explain real quick kind of the, you know, how I mounted beds. So we touched on it in the first video, I think. Well, I don't know, first or second video a little bit. But anyhow, you know, so as far as mounting locations, I got one here. Well, one on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2 is 8, at least where I went to school. It's really basic, you know. That's in the rear, very rear. This is next to the gooseneck ball right there. One underneath the machine there, and then one all the way in the front. Let's back up for a second. So, if I remember right, a grade 8 half-inch bolt, which is half-inch bolts is what I'm using, has like a shear strength of like 17,000 pounds, I think. Don't quote me on that. So it takes, you know, i.e. to those that are wondering, a little explanation. You know, you take 2 plates. It takes, you know, you run a bolt through them. It would take 17,000 pounds. You know, considering this wouldn't break, it would take 17,000 pounds of, you know, directional force to shear that half-inch bolt. In other words, in simple man's terms, it'll take a lot to rip this bed off, you know, the truck frame. The truck frame is thinner than even these mounting points. You know, I use 3/8 plate here in the back, 3/8 you know, diameter plate, and it's a 1/4 inch up in the front. So simple man's math, it's going to take a lot. Nonetheless, you know, 8 bolts in the whole thing, yada yada yada. Like I said, I'm not a scientific guy. I just like to overbuild things, you know, kind of. I don't know, you kind of get a sense, you know, when you're working with stuff, you learn along the way, more or less, you know. So I just try to overbuild stuff, you know, from the get-go. And honestly, you know, I think this is overbuilt, and, you know, all this is welded around. You know, if you wanted to get scientific, you know, I've always kind of learned that, you know, welding, there's really no set rating for welding something. You know, if you want to say you want to run a you know, beam across the top here, and you were gonna bolt it to bolt it to another beam, you would more or less use bolts because you know the rating for it. You know, if you're trying to, you know, hang a crane, you know, say a 5-ton crane, you use proper bolts to bolt it instead of welding it where you're just kind of hoping it holds. You know, so that's just kind of my take on things. Like I said, I'm not a scientific guy in that matter, so, you know, take it for whatever it's worth. We'll get into toolboxes. You know what? I know I'm rambling at this point, but I enjoy you guys asking questions because I'm already moving 1,000 miles an hour trying to, you know, think about, you know, my next 10 steps ahead. So I'm already, you know, running along. I don't always stop to acknowledge every point that may or may not, you know, should be acknowledged, that kind of thing. So, you know, my fault, but at the same time, you know, I appreciate you guys asking. You know, it helps me, you know, think about this thing. So don't stop. You know, if you got a question, don't be afraid to ask. You know, I try to get to every comment. Sometimes, like, for whatever reason, my phone, like, I'll see a comment a week later that somebody commented that I didn't even see or something on the video or stuff. So if you have a question, don't, feel free to ask. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. I'll tell you, I'll shoot it to you straight. But anyhow, let's stop talking. What I'm going to start with, I'm going to run, we'll talk in a little while. Let's just get some work done. But I'm going to run 2-inch tube basically around the whole back of the thing. Maybe up front, maybe not. I don't know yet, but at least to right here. So it's going to go, let me point at the dang thing. So it's going to go from at least fender here, wrap around all the way to this fender. So that's the plan to start with, and then we will see where it goes from there. Figure out the lights, a couple on each side or whatever, and then just build a little cage around the lights. Just kind of, one, keep it simple because I'd like to get this truck on the road if I don't sell it in the meantime. Let's get to work, and we'll catch up when we need to catch up. So over here you can kind of see that there's some of them have a little bit more of a gap than others, like that one there is pretty tight. Not really a big deal because I'm just going to grind this down anyway once everything's welded. But I don't necessarily have an angle finder to find this angle, and then what I did was these two angles, I just try to find the middle of this angle here. So i.e., you can kind of tell the middle of that angle is where that is right there. So I just kind of go, I don't really try to get all specific with it. I just kind of do one piece at a time, as you kind of saw. Got around the back side there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some pieces of 2-inch by 1/8-inch flat bar that is going to go around, serves my my wheel well, or my fender more or less, if you will. I'm just going to hug it here, tack it on one side, and then just keep, because it's going to be welded the outside of here, make it easier, and then I'm just going to keep tacking it around, just keep bending around like I've done in the past, like you've seen me do. Just keep going around it, same as the other side. But yeah, hitch is welded in, it's solid. So anyway, I'm going to probably roll this into a 2-day 1-part video because I'm working on it in the evening time. It's just kind of, I'm limited on time and what I can get done. So just for sake of the video, what I was gonna say here. So what I'm gonna do with the lights, we had a failure here. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner because I've just been throwing it up here, using one as a dummy, but I wasn't as careful, broke the end of it off. But nonetheless, so what I'm gonna do is just basically just put a couple lights right here, just maybe double stack. And then all I'm going to do for it, I'm not going to get fancy or nothing with it, just screw them to the outside of this right here, and then I'll just build a little more or less shelter out of some like 1x1 1x1 angle iron, or not angle iron, flat stock. Just kind of build a little place to tuck them out of the way, so nobody's kicking them off, sparks are staying off of it, not getting behind it, that kind of thing. So that's the plan for that anyway. Once I get the fenders bent around, I'm going to put some round stock on the outside perimeter to give it a little more, make it look a little better, give it some definition, some shape. So anyway, let's start with that, and then we'll see what we get accomplished tonight. So as you can see, it's pretty simple enough. This side I think turned out a little better. The other side, when I was tacking this here piece up, when I cut it out, the piece, it tends to, when you cut a wheel well out, if you don't have enough meat on it, sometimes the ends tend to shrink on the bottom. So the first time I welded on, it shrunk in, but what I also didn't realize was that this piece here, more or less, it was pointing down anyway, so I wound up cutting this off a little bit and pulling it back out. But anyway, I trimmed some off. I don't think that's right. Yeah, I trimmed this much off right here. That's how much I trimmed off. So I just kind of gapped it a little further than how much I trimmed off, more or less. That's how much I tried to gap it. Gonna fill it in with something, but I'm not sure how I want to finish off the front here. I don't want this here up there, so I'm thinking more or less like maybe just from here to here, put a piece of tube, cut it kind of angle, and then I don't know, maybe just, I don't know, I might even chop the bottom half and angle it. I don't even know yet, but I want to do something different than just have this tube here. This is more or less, a bumper for there, but maybe I'll put something there, maybe I won't. I don't know yet. I got to mention, one of the comments was asking, I forget exactly what, but I had mentioned that I'm going to put a step in somewhere here, whether it's off the bottom or what, but that way I'll be able to, step up to where the machine is and fuel the machine up. So definitely going to put a step in here somewhere. Not sure exactly yet, but anyway, we're moving in the right direction. So, what do you think? I know it's simple, but that's the goal of this build. Simple, clean, get it done quick. That's the goal. So anyway, not my first option. Whoops. Not my first option I wanted to go with, but it's simple. It'll protect him. It's kind of warm. I made him a little bigger that way. I don't know why I made him so big, but anyhow, so that's what it's gonna more or less look like from the back end. We still got some work to do on the boxes, obviously. So I think tonight, it's getting kind of late. I gotta be up early tomorrow, so I think for tonight I'm gonna call it good enough, and we'll pick back up tomorrow. Probably work on the finishing up, try to finish up the boxes, get the boxes dried in, and then once that's done, I can kind of more or less start welding stuff back here, because obviously you want to get everything structurally in place before you start welding everything out. Otherwise you're gonna have warping issues to and from. So before I weld anything, I more or less tack everything up good in here, but before I weld anything more, I want to go ahead and put my angle iron around here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And we're back. Next day, got home, had some rain, blah blah blah. We're gonna start framing out this this box here with our angle iron. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting pieces. I'm gonna do kind of like I did before with the this back here. I'm just gonna cut a piece to length, and I'll just go wind up just mitering the corners. Once I get them in here, it's just as easy. Get them in there, cut wheel. And I'm actually finding that I actually kind of like using this just for cutting, because it doesn't have, like, being battery power, it doesn't have the grunt force. Like if it catches it, most of the time it'll stall it out. So honestly, it's a safer alternative to my point, except this battery here lasts like 30 seconds. So definitely get the bigger battery. I'm thinking about maybe investing in the DeWalt 60 volt here before long. But anyhow, gonna start cutting out angle pieces, and we'll see. Like I said, I want to try to get at least this one side box done with a lid on it, so I can kind of see how the other side is going to work as well, as far as that goes. So anyway, let's get rolling, and we'll see what happens today. To those that were wondering about toolbox, so I got a perimeter essentially around the whole thing with angle iron. So going forward, I'll go ahead and cut my my top piece, and I want it to be just ever so slightly in from the outside of this, because I want it to look more or less like it's one straight, whatever you want to call it. You know, I want it to more or less sit to the edge of everything here. So what I'll go ahead and do, cut out my plate. You know, I'll lay a piece of plate up here, mark it from underneath, try to get like a straight edge all the way around it, where I can mark straight up under the plate. And then ideally, because the angle iron, it's 1 inch angle, you know, so we're under 1 inch now, because it would be 1 inch from the backside. So ideally would be to probably, your toolbox lids to be out of like 3/4 inch flat stock, you know, your edges. Well, I don't have any of that, and I don't have enough material to cut any, or I mean, it would warp like crazy trying to cut 3/4 inch flat stock. So I got 1 inch. It's going to raise it up, going to be a little high, but you know, I don't know. It might work out awesome. It might not work at all. I don't know yet, but nonetheless, we're going to try to see if it'll more or less work for us. But one thing I don't have, and I kind of forgot about, is latches. You know, that would be a good time to cut them in. You can do it in, you know, after the lid's on, but you know, don't forget about where you want to put your latches. I'll probably put one. I don't know where I'll put one yet. If I'll put a gas strut or a spring on it, I don't know yet either. But anyhow, we're going to get a piece of plate, lay it up here, trace it out, cut it out, and then I'm going to go ahead and weld the flat bar around it. Now, when I've done lids, you know, if you don't have them broke, you know, the X in them, you know, that's a better alternative. But anyhow, like what I'll do, I'll weld the flat stock. You'll see, I'll weld the flat stock on first, weld the thing out completely. That way, it more or less doesn't change when you go to, you know, to say, you know, say you were to, you know, tack everything on, go ahead and weld the hinges on, and then weld everything out. It wouldn't come out just right then, because, you know, it would fit correctly before you weld everything out. Therefore, it's going to try to pull on everything. But before I do any of that, I do need to weld this back seam here, because I'm never going to get to this if I weld the toolbox on, or weld the lid on before I get everything else on. But you know, the cause of concern right now, we're just going to get a piece of plate, lay it up here, trace it out, cut it out, and then weld our flat stock on the ends. and then we'll set it up here and see what it looks like, and we'll go from there. I'll have a couple more little tips and tricks here as we progress here a little further. But anyhow, let's get back on it. Now that I've actually thought about this, I'm kind of a dummy, because it would have been a lot easier to lay the plate up here before I put the angle on, mark it. Yeah, so remember that. Lay the plate, mark it. If you're going to do it like this, lay the plate up there, mark it, blah, 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 and then it would have been a whole lot easier. But sometimes I'm not the smartest. So anyway, we're going to start cutting our 1-inch flat bar to go around here and see what this thing's going to look like then. Well, the camera wasn't exactly on me while I was doing that, but anyhow, it's pretty close. So like everywhere, it's pretty, it's decent all the way around, except for right here. It's, I guess, I got, pretty sure I can even see it now. I either got this off a little bit, or this here. It's just got a little bow in it when I was measuring, trying to figure out. It's not quite square. I think what I'll just wind up doing is cutting this here piece off, this 1-inch here, and just bringing it out, tacking it, trying to tack it. I'll have, probably a 3/16 gap to fill. I either put something in there, fill it, and or just turn the welder down and try to fill it in. Because everywhere else is pretty decent. Right here where the hitch is, you can kind of see it's out a little bit, but also this here flat bar is pushed in a little bit as well. So that's not so much concern back here. It's pretty close. Looks like boogers on there right now, but cleaned up that line. Also cleaned up back here. Cut a couple out. Brought this edge back here. Let me point at it. This edge back here was a little pushed out, so I cut those, pushed that plate in a little bit. So now we're pretty good. Grinder and paint make me the welder ain't, am I right? So I just saw a tack over there that wasn't tacked all the way. Watch your eyeballs. It's okay if I watch through the camera, right? That was bright. So pretty decent. Like I said, there's a little bit of a gap, not a gap, but a little bit of ledge right there. But overall, I'm fine with that. So this here is obviously a receiver tube, made for pulling. It's a little narrower than 2.5 by 2.5, 3/16 swallows, which is what this is, which is fine for your average your vise or whatever that might go in there. I got a set screw on the inside, so I'll be able to tighten it up. But anyhow, I need another piece for over here. I don't have any more, so I got the old hitch right here that came off the 2nd gen, and I believe that is same thing, 3/16 wall, so it should work fine for over here. We'll set the plate on here on top first, trace it out. It'll be a lot easier, and we'll try to get this side over here started anyhow. But first I'm gonna grab some water. I'm starting to get a little bit of a headache for some reason, so I'm gonna go get some water, try to hydrate, and get back down here and just keep working. So it's been a minute. Just went up and had some dinner. It's getting dark out. So anyway, I got half a headache for whatever reason, so I'm just gonna kind of chill out the rest of the evening. We didn't get a whole lot accomplished, but yet we still made some progress. So you know, every little bit helps in that sense. But anyhow, I'm just gonna go try to relax. Definitely gonna get a lot knocked out this weekend in a couple days. So for sure, stay tuned for the next part. Real quick, I'll kind of reiterate a few key points to those that are more or less, you know, maybe doing this for the first time. Ideally, we'd probably get some, you know, bullet hinges or something already made, but I didn't order any, and I figured I could make some out of some 5/8 round stock and some tube I got. But because these lids aren't broke, and you know, they don't have as much strength in them. So number one, I'll try to weld my hinges further out. That way it's strengthened by, you know, this edge rather than somewhere in the middle. So keep that in mind. You know, I'm going to try to weld my hinges almost, you know, basically the outside of each box on each side. Maybe one in the middle, probably not though. But anyhow, normally when you weld the entire seam of this thing, the lids, they want to you know, go belly down, whatever you call it. So what I've done before in the past is you just flip them over, give them a good tap. Normally they'll bow the opposite way to give you, you know, that way water's not going to sit in it. And then once they're, you know, bowed this way more or less or whatever, then I'll just take some angle iron on the underside, just, you know, maybe run just a couple, you know, 1-inch angle iron underneath just to give it some rigidity. They ain't got to weld much, you know, just stitch, you know, on each end, couple stitch welds in the middle, you know, 1-inch welds, nothing crazy. But that way it'll strengthen this part up, because right now, like, you know, it's definitely not as strong as it should be. So that's that. But anyway, next video, I do need to grab some more plate, so I'm gonna try to get some of that before we need it. I have enough to do the lid, and so I have this piece for the lid. That's all I have left. I thought I had more here in the shop, but I don't, so I gotta get some more plate. But anyhow, we're getting close to, you know, functional, more or less. But anyway, so that's gonna do it for tonight. I don't got much more else to say. So that's gonna do it, guys. Like I said, I think I talked more in this video than I did actual work, and probably the same thing as the last video. But anyhow, I just want to say thanks for watching, everyone. I will mention again that this truck, you know, it's for sale. Not saying that I'm gonna, you know, just give it away just because I want to get rid of it, you know. But if somebody wants it and you know, meets the price I want, you know, I have no reason not to sell it. So that being said, if you guys want the truck and bed, or just a truck, whatever, you know, let me know. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll definitely see you guys on the next one. So thanks, guys.